Welcome to Kill the Computer, a show about... What the fuck is our show about?
I ask myself that every fucking day. It's a show, I got it right here. It's a show about how the internet spills into the real world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, welcome back. Hey, June, how are you?
Wait, do you want to redo that?
No, I think I'll keep that. That sounds good to me.
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm
Listen,
doing great.
This is our third episode. Actually, you know, I think most people listening are more familiar with us anyway. And if I don't like it when I'm editing this, then I can go back and steal the episode, the cold open or the open from one of our other episodes.
Yeah, whatever works. But no, I'm doing good. You know, I'm learning about every day. I wake up and I'm like, how better can I jack off with AI today? Turns out that jacking off with AI AI is advancing quite rapidly, sadly, but the aspects that's advancing the most rapidly seems to be jack off technology, which is really interesting. People are pretty horny.
Of technology advances for the specific purpose of helping people to jack off.
Yeah, no, it's in a year, it's going to be indistinguishable from Pornhub, like that. We're not even going to need that anymore. Like, the whole, we're going to have to do age verification to get on Pornhub and all these different things. You're not even going to need it because getting on Twitter and using Grok to jack off is free at this point. So
Grok
who knows?
Spicy mode. What I didn't know. So I saw that. I'm assuming you're talking about the article where it was like, I can't remember who published this, and I apologize to whoever wrote this because it was a good piece, but it was like I used the Grok Spicy mode, which I would know was a fucking thing until like now, and they just started making Taylor Swift porn without like the journalist even asking. Did you see that?
I actually didn't see that, but I love the idea that the AI is exciting itself so much that it just is like, oh, I got something for you. Don't you worry.
You're gonna fucking love this. And it's like, what are you doing, dude? How have they not been fucking sued into oblivion? Taylor Swift has the patience of a saint, because that's not the first time that Grok specifically, has proliferated deepfakes of Taylor Swift.
Yeah, it was like pretty early on, like in Grok's lifespan, like with image generation, where there was some issues, or it was during the election, I think, when I guess Taylor Swift became a culture war issue, and a lot of blonde musicians and actresses tend to become culture war issues, it seems. But
weird.
it's a very surprising that there has seemingly been no action other than Scarlett, what was her name? Scarlett Johansson, the voice on, that's not Grok, but on a different AI service.
That was Siri, yeah, they just took her voice.
Yeah, it was Siri, that's right. Yep. Yeah, that's the only instance of something like that I can think of at this point, which is concerning and shocking, honestly.
Yeah. Definitely a bummer.
I love Kill the Computer because I can just kind of open an episode with something that kind of bums me out a little bit. It's like, because that's like every day I wake up and it's like, oh, there's this really big bummer that's unavoidable because they keep putting it in front of us and putting it on our phones and putting it on our computers and everything.
Unescapable fucking malady that you just have to deal with in society now.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah. I am doing pretty well. This time tomorrow I will be watching football, so that's good.
Ooh.
For me. That is soothing. I'll be a lot less edgy. I have quit smoking, so I've been really kind of I've been a little on edge lately, and so I think watching football is the thing that'll definitely make me more calm.
Oh, see, I don't know football enough.
Yeah.
I assume people like watching it. I assume when people watch sports, they enjoy it. But you're right. I need to remember that it's actually a form of torment. It is a self-imposed torment nexus meant to destroy people's minds.
To be like it's a way to be like upset. I think it was Arif from my other show. He said that on our Western Kabuki episode. It was like football. The point of enjoying football is to be sad in groups or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, that's actually really true.
That's profound. Yeah. Damn. I kind of love that. Yeah. What better way to spend an evening, a weekend?
Yeah.
Than to scream and get pissed off.
Yeah. I will do my best to edit these out, but if you hear me coughing or kind of sniffling a little bit. I apologize. I am sick right now, so we'll do our best to get through this. Anyway, don't want to delay. We're not talking about pornography today. We're talking about
as much as we would love to.
So, someday we should do a Deepfakes episode. I think that's kind of probably not that far in the future.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, we're talking about we're doing a follow up from our pilot episode, the bots episode. Enough of you had said we'd asked if you wanted us to continue on and talk about how kind of we talked about how it was used in astroturfing campaigns for profit and for just various astroturfing campaigns, and a little bit of my history and stuff that I got to share doing it back in the day. And then we skipped over kind of like the government and state actor side of things a little bit. So I think that's what we're going to be talking about a little bit today.
Very exciting stuff. So this like sort of conversation only came on my radar in Trump's first term with like the whole Russian bot thing. And I guess just like kind of going back to that era and to like where we are now, I had, at the time after Trump was elected, it was also a different era. Like people, like the media, a lot of people were like, oh yeah, it was like Russia like did this and that with bots. There was the Russian bots. And I don't know when it really happened or why it happened, but it felt like there was like a media shift. Maybe it was because Trump was always, and his whole world was always trying to counter that. But it just seems to sort of be the consensus that there was no Russian bots and that would be ridiculous. And I never really understood that. Like maybe Russian bots didn't win Trump the election. That I can understand. But the idea that like state actors in different countries these days don't use technology as easy as bots, and like especially now with AI to influence opinion,
stuff. Yeah.
Troll farms, to me, to completely deny the existence of that as a form of like like media narrative shifting. I just don't understand how people can deny the existence.
Well, I think
of
it's
that.
like it's pretty easy to kind of, I guess, dismiss all that because it's kind of sucked up into the whole Blue Anon, Russiagate type stuff that goes, I think, way too far. I do think there is a lot of that is true, of course, and I think that I think we on the left have a kind of a propensity to just assume that all of it is fake and throw the baby out with the bathwater. That's actually not the case. Like definitely, verifiably true that the Russians were using bots, and they were not just the Russians, actually, as we're going to get into in this episode a little bit further. And then also
turns out countries do propaganda.
Yeah, like a substantial amount of propaganda was happening even far back 10 years ago or whatever. Also, just as a reminder here, Clinton was using bots too in troll farms. Do you remember David Brock?
Yes. Oh, I totally memory hold this one. What was the deal with it? This came out after the election, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, hang on. It was
David Brock is such an awesome freak. I wonder what he's up to these days. I'm surprised he's not like.
Didn't we talk about this a couple months ago on Western Kabuki? We were kind of. I think Alex had the update on David Brock, what he was up to, but they had that the pack or whatever correct the record. If you don't, okay, so if we're speaking a gibberish to you, if you're too young or you don't remember otherwise, Hillary Clinton there was a political action committee that was called Correct the Record, and David Brock was the head of it, and it was somebody that paid actual people, and then they also had like troll and just like whatever troll and bot farms of just people that would fight against lefties and then against conservatives as well, to kind of be like the Democrat centrist people, the sensible but a little bit edgy people online back in like the 2016 era.
If you ever fought against someone that called you a Bernie bro in like 2015, it might have been Correct the Records operations. It's like very well could have been. Yeah.
Very interesting. And like, David Brock was like a never Trump Republican too. And it was just kind of that like awful. I mean, it's still happening to this day, that consultant class in the Democratic Party that we just can't seem to get rid of just like, hey, let's appeal to like the suburban centrist moms as opposed to doing anything meaningful that will make people's lives better. So there was a whole troll farm about that too. But yeah.
So, something, just a side note about this sort of like never Trump Republican kind of guy is Trump winning the second election has seemingly totally radicalized them. There was one of these guys that used to be a Republican, like he was a straight up Republican that just came out and endorsed Zoran Mamdani and is like shitting on Democratic leadership. And he's like, this is the Zoran's the way of the future, baby. And it's like, you were a Republican like 8 years ago. What is happening here? Like these people have like they're unironically building guillotines. Some of them, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them are like, we gotta kill him. We gotta kill Trump. Like that's like what we gotta do. Like David Frum too, another notorious evil guy, is like sort of self-radicalizing. It's quite goofy.
I almost wonder if he's doing that out of a guilty conscience because he knows his fate should be swinging today. You know what I mean? Like, in the fucking Bush administration, I can never.
Yeah, they're evil. I at least can appreciate like maybe saying that stuff to an audience that might be receptive. I don't think he might be doing it for whatever motive. I have no idea, but it's just quite
also,
insane. It's one of those things.
A Canadian Republican in the Bush administration.
What?
Nasty, dude. Yeah.
What is wrong with Canadian? No offense to our Canadian listeners, but you guys got some crazy conservatives up there.
It's the Canadian conservatives that have always, obviously, for the record, people are people, and I don't want to shit on Canadians either, because I have actually spoken to a lot of people over the years that, like, I used to be like, why the fuck do you guys care about our politics so much? And it's like, oh wait, because like, world hegemony, yay, they don't, they kind of are forced to. So yeah. But there's something, and so like whatever, people are people, but there is something I will say about the Canadian conservative, because it's like, they're obviously further to the left than we are in the United States, but we kind of have this like, we have this in Washington State too, where it's like you have like the nicey nice boy Republican that's an insane freak that loves all the amenities of like living in a blue state, but like wants to destroy it somehow. Yeah. We have a lot of those kind of guys. Yeah. Anyway, that's sorry, we're on a little bit of a tangent there. So yeah, let's talk about 2016. What do you, just give me a lay of the land for what the internet was like for you back then, June? Just like, because to me it seems like, people talked about politics before this, but there was something about that moment in time that just seemed like the start of some marathon or something. We're kind of still running that marathon today.
Yeah. And for me in this time, it kind of starts before Trump gets elected. It's really starts in the 2015 election cycle, just in general. I feel like people talk about this, and this might be a really weird way to quantify this, but a lot of people have sort of laid out that, memes before were kind of eternal in a sense. Like meme culture online there would be a meme and it would last like a year. Like you could still like 6 years after its inception, you would still see people posting like Bad Luck Brian formats, or just
the advice animals and the rage faces, the millennial version of like Wojaks or whatever.
Yeah, Rage Comics. A big fan of those. I think those are better than the Wojaks. But like meme culture, internet joke culture lasted a lot longer. It wasn't beaten to death with a hammer within a day. I feel like there's a lot of examples of people, like a joke these days going pretty viral online, and everyone gets their picking of whatever joke they want to make alongside that. And then you start to inevitably within 24 hours get someone that goes, and the joke's dead, because like some like brand or whoever evil person gets in on the joke.
And it's like, this is just cooked. It's over.
And that like didn't really happen that much back 10 years ago in like 2015. And I feel like that was sort of the acceleration of the shift in online like meme culture, which I hate saying that. I feel like such a dork.
The great meme war of 2016.
Yeah, and I feel like as stupid as it is, that really actually genuinely changed internet culture as a whole, not just like memes, but how we like consume the internet and how we interact with each other online. There was always like partisan sparring back and forth, whether it be politics or like religion. There was always that, and there will always be that. But it was different. It felt more slower form, slower paced. And in this time especially, I was kind of just mostly using Reddit. So maybe my perception of the internet at that time through like how that was really the only way I interacted with social media at that time, other than a little Facebook here and there. But it just felt slower, if that makes sense, and more earnest. I feel like a lot of people can look back at old YouTube videos. I think of like Neil Cicerega. I've been kind of going back and watching a lot of really old Neil Cicerega videos, and it's like there's an earnestness to what he did that just doesn't really exist in any real way today either.
Yeah. God, that just as an aside, I think it's so funny that of the two of us, you were the one that was like super Reddit. I'm definitely I'm on Reddit now. Like I'm way into Reddit. It's my favorite social media platform now because I've got it like fine-tuned to where I only see the things that I want to see. That's the only platform left that you can really still do that, I think. Maybe Blue
it definitely
Sky,
is. Yeah. I think I've told this story before, but I really only used Reddit to talk about like politics. I was one of those politics dorks on Reddit for a while, where I would just sort of get into arguments for a while. And my home base, because that was just sort of the home base for any leftist on Reddit at the time, was the Chapo Trap House subreddit. And once that got banned, I made the switch to Twitter. So then that started my like posting on Twitter and everything else I do now arc, which, you know, is a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. I remember a specific moment. I've talked about this a lot too. Speaking of Reddit, this was like kind of a Reddit crusade, like the net neutrality wars and stuff like that. And we've talked about Soba Pipa and net neutrality more broadly. That kind of ties into one of the things I wanted to talk about now on this episode was one of the first, like, again, to use that metaphor that I used before, like the prey on the Serengeti, like, moments that I had with this stuff was back in, this was 2016, 2017. There was, the FCC was taking comments about, net neutrality as a whole. And I remember when this was happening, because this went on Reddit too, and it's like, voice your concern. We got to talk about, this was at post-Trump election, and Ajit Pai was his name, the guy that was in charge of that. That's right. And he was like Reddit enemy number one. And they kind of felt like the
entire internet hated this guy.
Yeah. Republicans hated him. I mean, in the fucking Nazis hated him. Nazis hate Indian people for various racist reasons as well, too.
But it wasn't even like primarily that. Like today it would have primarily been that. But like back then it was not anything to do with any racist reasons. I don't think, at least on the forefront. It was
unfortunately, if you got deep enough into it, it very much was.
Oh, God.
Yeah. The Indian racism was there. It wasn't nearly as pronounced. I mean, Indian racism today is just like something that is casually done in a very fucked up way that I don't understand how it's been normalized, and it really fucking sucks. But it did exist back then. Anyway, that's kind of the point. But like to get back to what I was getting at is like Ajit Pai had like opened up the FCC comments, and you could like write physical mail, or just contact them digitally or whatever, and they were going to use that as like a justification essentially to like change net neutrality rules. The problem with that is it was found out that there was a massive, and I mean like tens of millions of dollars going into an astroturfing campaign for this from the telecommunications companies.
No way.
I'm going to pull this up here. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, who is still the AG now, had released essentially their investigation. I'm going to read a quote from that about what their findings was. And it's from her report didn't come out until 2021, and it was titled AG James issues report detailing millions of fake comments revealing secret campaign to influence FCC's 2017 repeal of net neutrality rules. Through its investigation, the Office of Attorney General found that in 2017, the nation's largest broadband companies funded a secret campaign to generate millions of comments to the FCC. Many of these comments provided cover for the FCC's repeal of net neutrality rules. This practice, disguising an orchestrated paid campaign as a grassroots effort to create false appearances of genuine unpaid public support, is often referred to as astroturfing. To help generate these comments, the broadband industry engaged commercial lead generators that used prizes like gift cards and sweepstakes entries to lure consumers to their websites and join the campaign. However, nearly every lead generator that was hired to enroll consumers in the campaign instead simply fabricated consumers' responses. As a result, more than 8.5 million fake comments that impersonated real people were submitted to the FCC, and more than 500,000 fake letters were sent to Congress. Americans' voices are being drowned out by the masses of fake comments and messages being submitted to the government to sway decision-making, said New York Attorney General. Instead of looking for real responses from the American people, marketing companies are fabricating responses that giant corporations then use to influence the policies and laws that govern our lives. Now, 2017, we're getting close to that being a decade ago. That's what they were able to do for one thing. So,
and that was probably fairly
sure.
primitive technology to where we're at now.
Pre-AI as we know it now. A lot of this was just through a brute forcing money through these things. Hey, fill out this thing that says the FCC, or to this letter to the FCC that net neutrality is we want to change the rules, and you get like a gift card or something. You could do that to however many people, and they'll just blindly do it because they're dum-dums. But it just goes to show a lot of these people were doing these under fake emails and stuff as well. If you, it'll be in the notes too. If you read the entire report, it's actually a very interesting time capsule. And I think I'm getting weird pilled about this because it's, to me, very interesting to see how the techniques have evolved over the last 10 or so years. You know what I mean? From 2015-ish to now. And it was surprisingly still very bot heavy back then.
Yeah, I think back then my conception of bot was what AI I guess is, but it just feels different now. When someone says, "Oh, a bot is doing this thing," I'm like, "Oh, okay." That it just feels different. I guess maybe the way I'm trying to explain what I'm trying to say right now is that I didn't really have a vision of what a bot truly was back then. I think maybe that's why. I think maybe a lot of people had that, and that's why so many people started to dismiss the whole Russian bot narrative, because it's oh, sure, okay, you have a bunch of bots doing this thing, are you sure? You sound crazy. Maybe that's why you just couldn't really picture it in your mind back then, or at least I didn't. I don't know a lot about technology and back then especially, so I couldn't really conceive of it in any real way.
Yeah, and also I think too, back then and even before, bots or bot farm accounts or whatever were, and it's in the notes too. There's a Freedom Foundation study and some other stuff that kind of go through how they in this New York or Attorney General report too, they kind of go into how they identify what bots look like. And that, to me, as somebody who was doing that, like I said in the last episode, was really, really interesting to kind of note how they had really sized up exactly what we were doing. We followed 9-to-5 work schedules ish, you know what I mean, when we were posting these things, because a lot of us were stateside. We did leave some of the likes and stuff going on overnight when we would run them through our software or just whatever. We had contractors overseas, of course. We did Southeast Asia. We did have a lot of contractors that were doing some of the stuff too. But we did a lot of the writing and actual work had to be done by companies in the West or in the United States to have this authenticity, because it was so much easier back then to determine which bots were real, which accounts were bots rather. And I think that because of that, so many people, they didn't really see how much better these companies got at kind of disguising their behaviors and stuff like that. I think a lot of people were more willing, I guess this is all to say, people were more willing to write that off, because you can kind of tell when an account is a bot, the average discerning person could. Over time, however, that did change.
they got too good at it. And I think that's interesting that we're kind of in a period right now. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's fairly obvious, at least to me, when you go on Twitter or any social media, whether it be Instagram, anything, and you see bot replies, it's fairly in your face and obvious these days, because it always sounds like the dumbest fucking person in the world that was just born 10 minutes ago that sounds like a bot today. But that will change. It's going to get to that point where human bot farms, like troll farms, sort of got to, I feel like.
Well, it's interesting
maybe
to
in the late
see
2010s.
too, how, like, and you're totally spot on, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just had this thought. Like, in an environment in which bots are kind of more allowed to exist, like on the meta platforms on Facebook in particular, you kind of, like AI and stuff like that, it's a lot harder, not harder to tell, but I guess, like, I was talking to my dad about this, a little bit harder for him to tell, for example, because he just doesn't have the, I don't know, the discerning eye to tell what's a bot or not. And that's very scary for those of us who have older parents, But like, I was going on there just to kind of see what he's looking at. And, I do have my various Facebook groups that I'm in, and I check on my strange friends that are into reptile overlords and stuff like that. But yeah,
your pervert Pokédex.
My best friends. But like, you go on there where like AI and bots are like allowed to exist, and it's like not even tacitly, but explicitly a part of the ecosystem there. And it actually is. It's like more like, wait a second. And like all the stuff is getting like, pushed down my throat. And it, like, for so long, even just like a year ago, it was that like, nobody loves me, it's my birthday AI post or whatever. But it's like, it's getting better. And like, you can tell, but also it's like, how long before this is starting to get like, how long until they get so good at this that we reach that kind of inversion point and we can no longer tell? And that's kind of scary. There's that. And then obviously, like what you were talking about, like on Twitter, you can see like in the responses to like an advertisement, it'll be like an investment banking firm, and then the responses are all like thumbs up and like, wow, nice post or whatever. You know what I mean?
yeah, like the face scratch emoji, like stuff like shit like that. It's like, come on, like, you're not fooling anyone with this. But to go on that point that you made, that I think will bring us into the next part of what we're going to talk about on this episode, is even though a lot of this stuff isn't super convincing to like you or I or people that have been on the internet for as long as we had, maybe, or just younger people, old people are getting fooled by this. And I was telling you about this before. I'm going to send a video, and you can cut what I'm saying here, but definitely play this, like put the audio in the episode. It's absurd. So I just sent it in the chat in our thing. So earlier today, the day as of recording this, Chris Cuomo, famously Andrew Cuomo's brother, the person running against our
Adam Friedland
posted. Yeah, exactly. That exact one. He posted this deepfake Congress speech by AOC he thought was real. The video that I sent you, Caleb, it has the deepfake text over it, but it, he posted this totally believing she made this statement, and you can play this here.
Sydney Sweeney looks like an Aryan goddess, and the American Eagle Jeans campaign is blatant Nazi propaganda. I mean, fuck. Watching that sultry little temptress squeeze into a Canadian tuxedo, 3 sizes too small.
I don't need to watch it.
With her bouncy little fun bags on the screen, staring at you.
He fell. He thought it was real.
Do
you want to know what he said? He posted that, and he said nothing about Hamas or people burning Jews' cars, but Sydney Sweeney jeans ad. And then after he got called out for being fucking wrong, he did the classic, "Oh, I fell for it, but it sounds real. Like, it sounds like you guys are the ones that are crazy." He did that classic bit.
But it could be true. Think about that, libs.
Literally, that's what he said.
What I love about that, first of all, like, the audio, I could have conceivably convinced that this was real for about 4 seconds before it's like, wait, that doesn't sound natural at all. And also, I know that you at home are listening to this, but the video quite clearly and right on her fucking head says Clonos.io parody 100% made with AI. How the fuck? How does that happen? This guy was like the biggest journalist in the country for a while.
People's brains are getting cooked by the lowest. Not even like how does this trick people? I don't understand. This has no right to trick people, but it is. And here's his statement after he got called out. He said, "You are correct. That was a deep fake, but it really does sound like you. Thank you for correcting. But now to the central claim." And then he goes on to talk bullshit. But yeah, no, this is the potential. Loser. The technology is hardly there yet, and this is the potential it has to like influence politics and like journalists and people in the world. It's a little scary.
Yeah, I'll fucking say Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Okay,
let's take a step back to that kind of first term Trump era, 2015-ish, that election anyway. What do you remember about Cambridge Analytica, June?
So I remember at the time there was that it was sort of a big. I think it was the organization. Cambridge Analytica was like a data harvesting and like bot farm organization that was. I don't recall who it was run by, but the thing I do remember the most about it is that it was very heavily involved with the UK Brexit referendum. Correct. And it heavily influenced social media in the UK in particular, which led people to vote to get out of the EU, the UK getting out of EU. And that was like, it was one of those elections, one of those votes you could very clearly attribute to political bot farm, troll farms.
We won't get into the whole Cambridge Analytica story. So I obviously knew about that much going into this. You remember it was like the Facebook data thing that helped get Trump elected, and they did the Brexit stuff or whatever.
Yeah.
I was reading and I listened to an entire podcast or two about this and kind of reading about the history of it and some of the other stuff they'd done. I recommend, just if you want a crazy story, if you only know that much, you really should go read the rest. It's not in the scope of our podcast, but like it's owned by the Brits, and like they worked with Mossad to do things like get politicians in bribery scandals or hook them up with sex workers to blackmail them. And this is not conspiracy. An undercover investigation caught their CEO bragging about doing this shit. And
no fucking way. I somehow missed that part of this. What the fuck?
I had no clue how deep it went. And so like, this investigation happens and I'm just going to go over the history of it really fast because it's not what we're talking about. But this investigation happens, this big scandal that I somehow missed. The CEO gets kind of a slap on the wrist, and he can't be like an officer for a public company in the UK for like 5 or 7 years or something like that. Nothing really happens. And then the Cambridge Analytica goes away, but like the previous company that they formed out of is still there. They operate in Canada, and then they formed a new one that does the same thing basically. But one thing that I thought was really funny is that they in 2018 got involved in Dragon Coin, which, if you don't know what is that? It's a cryptocurrency that they use in Chinese casinos for a payment method, and it's run by Chinese it's like owned by like Chinese gangsters and stuff like that. So like it's like got the reason that I say that is like if Marcos, if you're listening to this episode, buddy, this has like everything that Marcus would be like, hey man, you know how like organized crime is involved with like Mossad in China with cryptocurrency? One of those sentences that he'll just text me in my head, just like, you know what I mean? It's like that.
Yeah. It is one of those things that just sounds way too fucking crazy. Like, how is that real? I don't fucking know. But apparently it's somewhat legal. Like, people aren't punished for doing stuff like this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just legal in the sense that there's like no consequences. Yeah. But they did stuff in like 200 different elections in like 80 countries around the world, all over everywhere.
I mean, definitely the most notable being Donald Trump's first election in 2016, and then Brexit, of course.
Yeah. That was like their first big one. So I'm going to play the reason that I'm saying this is because we remember that part really. And I want to talk about like how they gathered their information, because we did talk about this a little bit in the first episode, but I want people to kind of get a better idea of like how this information is harvested and like how nefarious it is and how much information they actually have about you. So kind of one of the reasons that like Cambridge Analytica went tits up was because there was a whistleblower, Christopher Wiley. And I'm going to play an interview that he had done with The Guardian here. And I'm just going to play an excerpt of that. It's going to be a little bit long. The whole thing is linked in the notes. The whole thing is not, and the whole thing's only like 15 minutes, but I'm going to play a couple of minutes of it because I want you to kind of hear in his words, kind of like what Cambridge Analytica was, what they did, how they got the information and stuff.
My name is Christopher Wiley. I'm a data scientist, and I helped set up Cambridge Analytica. It's incorrect to call Cambridge Analytica a purely sort of data science company or an algorithm, company. It is a full-service propaganda machine. If you can control all of the streams of information around your opponent, you can influence how they perceive that battle space, and you can then influence how they're going to behave and react. When I first met him, I knew he was Steve from America. And then later I got told he was the editor of Breitbart. Steve Bannon saw himself as an intellectual. We would need to sort of present ourselves in a way that was more academic, more sort of ideas focused and all that. Alexander realized that we needed a Cambridge site. And so we set up a fake office in Cambridge. And whenever Steve would come, we would bring a bunch of people from the London office, plop them into the Cambridge office, and give Steve the impression that we had a lot of our operations based out of the university. We changed how he perceived who we are and what we were doing. And it was his idea, Steve's idea, to give the company the name Cambridge Analytica. This sort of warped perception is infused into the name Cambridge Analytica itself.
So you psyopsed Steve Bannon, basically?
In a way, he was a target audience of one.
And you changed his perception of reality? And
we changed his perception of who we were and what we were doing and what the situation that he was in, yeah.
And then from there, it was like you took that to America, to change the perception of reality for America.
Yeah. And the reason why he was interested in this is because he follows this idea of the Breitbart doctrine, which is that if you want to change politics, you first have to change culture, because politics flows from culture. And so what I said is that if you want to change culture, you have to first understand what the units of culture are. People are the units of culture. So if you want to change politics, you first have to change people to change the culture. Essentially, the pitch was that we were going to combine micro-targeting, which had existed in politics, which was, in part my background, but bring on boards new constructs from psychology, so that we wouldn't just be targeting you as a voter, we'd be targeting you as a personality. And in order to scale that, we would then be collecting a lot of data on people, so that we could build a psychological profile of each voter in a particular region, or in this case, all of the United States. They had apps on Facebook that were given special permission to harvest data, not from just the person who used the app or joined the app, but also it would then go into their entire friend network and pull out all of the friends' data as well. So if you joined the app, I would not just see your Facebook profile, I would see all of the Facebook profiles of everybody that you're friends with. We would only need to touch a couple 100,000 people to expand into their entire social network, which would then scale us to, most of America.
And people had no idea that their data was being taken in this way?
It was almost everything that would be on a Facebook profile. So that was things like status updates, likes, in some cases private messages,
So Cambridge Analytica has people's private messages they sent on Facebook.
I can't say whether they did or not. What I'm saying is what the app could do.
How many profiles were you pulling?
Tens of millions, upwards of 50, 60 million profiles were collected in a 2 or 3 month period. We would know what kinds of messaging you would be susceptible to, including the framing of it, the topics, the contents, the tone, whether it's scary or not, that kind of thing. So what you would be susceptible to and where you're going to consume that. In addition to having, data scientists and psychologists and strategists, they also have an entire team of, creatives, designers, videographers, photographers. They then create that content. That gets then sent to a targeting team, which then, injects it into the internet. Websites will be created, blogs will be created, whatever it is that we think this target profile will be receptive to. We will create content on the internet for them to find. And then they see that and they click it and they go down the rabbit hole until they start to think that, something differently. Yeah.
So yeah, basically they just had this, this quiz, this Facebook quiz that people were really, really stoked on doing those like 10 years ago. And
BuzzFeed was huge.
Yeah, like those kinds of things, but it was like an actual app that you gave permission to, and it would get all your, your information. But the interesting thing about this one was that like you didn't have to actually click on that to have your information be kind of sucked up into this. And if you listen to what Chris Wiley says, depending on what parts of that interview I put into to this episode or not, but if you listen to the full thing, he's like, we had more or less access to pretty much every voting American in the election, just based on what we were able to do, because Mark Zuckerberg's negligence there made it so that basically if my friend filled out that thing, then they could have any public information of mine as well. So there is a link, and that link is also in the notes. If you're curious, I mean, obviously it's been forever, but if you're curious to see if you either did one of their quizzes, they had one main one, but I believe they had other ones as well. Or if like one of your friends fucked you over, Facebook was required to put up a link to see if your account was compromised. So that's in there.
I don't know if I did specifically whatever these were, but like for people who weren't around at this time, like doing those sort of Facebook apps or quizzes where you would have to click like, oh, give us access to your account was kind of like the meta. I did not mean that as a pun, but that was the meta on meta platforms for a while,
Yeah. And, as we've talked about, even since we did the switch over to Kill the Computer, like what Facebook has become, or at least back then at its apex, was like, hey, give Facebook access to like quite literally like all of your interests, your fears and anxieties, everything, right? And so Cambridge Analytica did something called psychographic profiling, where they would take that stuff and they were able to build like in marketing and advertising, this is called like lookalike audiences, right? So like you can build a profile of like somebody that is amenable to like your product, or in this case, Donald Trump is your product, or like MAGA is what you're selling. And you can build like lookalike audiences, and they use this kind of stolen, not really, but yes, stolen data to tip the election in his favor through very nefarious means.
Yeah, because if I understand all of this correctly, they gathered all of not just data, like your name, where you live, all of that. That was, of course, important, but they were able to even figure out like how you like political leanings through just like internet activity, and this group cater ads to maybe influence you one specific way, give you a piece of information that could sway you any particular way that they would maybe want. Yep. And that is like the true danger in that. Yeah.
In the first part of this episode, I told you guys a story about how my friend who worked at one of these types of companies pulled up my information, and she'd had, I don't remember what it was, 80 something pieces of information about me just on this company. Cambridge Analytica, if you listen to that whole Chris Wiley interview, he had like 1,000 or 2,000 points of data on these people. Everything from their likely voting habits to, like 90% of the people that we know like conservative politics are going to drink Black Rifle coffee. Okay, well, then you can target people who like Black Rifle coffee and so on and so forth. And they would not just use that information for ads, but they would make quite literally the fake news, like blogs and videos. And they had this whole like content farm and all this shit that was like, being pumped through Breitbart and all these like content farms that were just like, tipping the election, various lies about any liberal politician, any competitive Republican, Bernie Sanders, what have you. These politicians and everything else were essentially being, used as scapegoats through this like kind of nefarious content farm. And of course, obviously that has massive influences on the 2016 election.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, you got to hand it to Hillary Clinton. She was correct about fake news. That was one thing she was correct on. She just called it out in a really bad way that apparently, I don't know, Trump was able to like meme it around on her.
Hillary Clinton had the problem.
She sucked is the problem.
Yeah, she had the problem that a lot of people have. And that is that she was really correct in diagnosing like MAGA up until the prescriptive stage, right? She was correct in a lot of this stuff. She just didn't. I don't know how to say this. And I'm not trying to give it to Hillary Clinton. Obviously, I'm not a fan.
It's one of those things where I believe it was Nancy Pelosi said, we need a strong conservative party, a strong Republican party in the beginning of Biden's year. And it's like, do we really need that? I don't know.
Basket of deplorables, right? Like she just didn't. She didn't know. She didn't like. She was fighting with one hand behind her back. The deck was stacked against her and all that stuff. And then she just was obviously like a very non-charismatic, shitty politician with a lot of legitimate skeletons and concerns in her closet too. So like, she just, but she was correct. I mean, like looking back at a lot of the stuff that she said about this time, she was actually very correct. So it's very interesting to kind of look back on all this as I was doing my research.
Yeah, it's interesting to come back to this topic of like bot farms and like specifically the 2016 election, because, earlier I was mentioning that there was sort of like a reversing in like how people talked about all of this. One of the more notable people, like Glenn Greenwald, he basically once Trump sort of came out and started talking about Russiagate, as it became known as, like he kind of had a chip on his shoulder about, all of this is fake now. It's like, well, there was like a media narrative around Russiagate, but like there were also bots. Like this did happen.
Yeah, a lot of the shit actually did happen. It just was talked about like incorrectly. And there's like I think an understandable but sometimes heavy-handed level of mistrust in like U.S. media from everybody, not just conservatives, that like really. And part of that is like anti-intellectualism and stuff like that. Sure. But like a part of it is,
I mean, a lot of these media companies fucking suck. Yeah. Let's just be real.
Correct.
Like a lot of them, I mean, people, especially of our cohort, don't trust a lot of these because one of our earliest memories is, them U.S. media knew and lied and got us into war in the Middle East. Yeah. And that's why we're still there. So it's like, of course, we're not going to trust pretty much most media at this point. Like, why would we? Yeah. We know they lie. It's like proven.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot to be said about how that happens. Whether it's, I think it's pretty easy to dismiss that. Oh, you're stupid. Like if you think that like they're all just lying to you on purpose because they're all in on it. And well, it's like, that's not really how it works, right? Like if you're a journalist, you're like a NatSec reporter or something like that. You report on the sources that you have, and the sources that you have tell you the things that they want in the media. And if you don't report on those things, or if you report on them critically, well, then you have lost your source. So de facto, a lot of these reporters, NatSec, or even you see a lot of this in tech, particularly with AI, like they essentially become like a propaganda piece for the beats that they're reporting on, which is like kind of antithetical to like what they're supposed to be doing. So it's like a discredit to the many actual investigative reporters that do good work. So that's kind of like what we're looking at here. how the fuck did we get on that tangent? Sorry.
I don't know. That was a massive sidetrack from one of us.
I'm so sorry,
how we got
guys. That's fine.
There's just so much to go over here.
Yeah.
And just thinking about 2016 just makes my fucking brain hurt. All of this, I didn't think we would have to think this hard about this still.
26, probably. Listening to this, you're probably, I mean, you're for sure. Like you're pissed.
Your blood's boiling, probably.
Yeah, you were like, this is like at least maybe your first election, or wasn't you weren't a little kid or something. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on because we're rounding out the hour here. We're getting close anyway.
Go. I was just gonna say, is there like other examples of like countries using bots to like influence or do different operations? Like, is there a different bot operations that we could go over?
Freedom House, they're in the notes. There's like Freedom House is like a nonprofit kind of like liberal think tank that talks about kind of, they're like a pro democracy advocacy group that gets into a lot of this stuff. And they had done a lot of they did a couple reports on how bots are used by obviously authoritarian regimes, but governments all around the world on their own citizens. And by their own study, it was, I think, 80 different nations had used bots in some capacity to like essentially affect or persuade political opinions in their own countries.
Yeah. And like that's, I think just we're going to keep seeing that grow. There was the story recently, a couple of weeks ago, that Grok is being integrated in some sort of like US government capacity. I think there was like a new ChatGPT agreement with the government. Like AI is being integrated on all levels in the US government. That's going to happen across the world with every government. And I don't really trust, especially some of the more authoritarian right-wing aspects of our current government. I don't put it past them to use that on us in maybe a year or sooner than that. I feel like that's just going to happen. Maybe it's already happening. Hard to say. I wouldn't be surprised if a study was done and it's like, oh yeah, like Twitter replies, like you see like all of those alligator Alcatraz images that you see AI generated by Grok, that was actually a government program. And I'd be like, oh duh, of course, obviously that would be like that just seems kind of like inevitable, that sort of propaganda at this point.
Did you see, speaking of this is just another horrifying thing that happened a few weeks ago that like I think kind of flew under the radar. Donald Trump wrote an executive order like 2 weeks ago called Preventing Woke AI in the Federal Government.
No,
you didn't see this?
Come on. No, it's woke AI in the government. What the fuck are we talking about anymore?
Yeah, so like there was that and like I don't think Ed listens to our show. Marcos I think does, Ed doesn't, but like Ed is very skeptical, and I don't remember the name of the deal. The deal that the federal government made with like this infrastructure with like SoftBank and everything to build out our AI infrastructure is already crumbling. SoftBank doesn't have the money to do this, and they were supposed to build out all this stuff and they don't have the money, and I think they're only building like one small data center for this, so it's like kind of a promise broken. But like this does go to show you that like investment in AI is superficial, or at least like, how do I say this? It's like if you read the actual executive order, it's more like DEI fear mongering. But what I'm kind of scared of is like, how the Trump administration has wiped through like federal websites and archives like any mention of like gender affirming care or just any words that they just don't like. And then
like bisexual, they've like gotten rid of any mention of bisexuals on any websites, which is absurd, very strange.
So this is like in a way kind of a de facto legislation for like any sort of AI with a federal contract, saying that you have to do AI that's like the based peppy AI. You know what I mean? So
it has to generate 10 rare paypays before it can be used by any citizen.
Yeah. Again, sorry, that was just kind of a complete aside.
Yeah, no, that's I love knowing that people in our government are thinking about the wokeness levels of AI. I think that's really great. A great sign.
This has nothing to do with AI. And I'm sorry, we've gone on a couple tangents here, but did you see the big balls news?
That shit. Okay, I know. I haven't looked too deep into it because I've had a pretty busy day, and last night I was pretty busy.
Psyop.
It's a psyop.
Yes.
I need to look a lot more into this, but they are going to use that as a pretext going forward to federalize DC.
Yeah.
I am convinced it's absolutely a psyop. Whatever happens from here on out in regards to DC, whenever they mention that, it's a psyop. Don't believe anything they say. It's not real. There is no way any of that was.
Are you trying to tell me
come on, why is Big Balls still important? Like what why was he? I don't know. I just don't believe it.
Big Balls somehow, and also
Big Balls,
a dead-eyed psychopath teenager that his whole thing was destroying and dismantling the federal government. He's altruistic enough. The story was he stopped a woman from getting assaulted in her car, and they turned on him. No.
Yeah.
No. That did not happen. A fucking 19-year-old Republican who like jacks off to destroying the country and becoming a future generation of Terminator perverts or whatever. He's not stopping an assault. I'm sorry. Maybe he just got mugged and he said, well, I stepped in because I'm Billy Badass. But like, no, the official story there does not add up. I'm sorry, that just doesn't. And yeah, maybe they use that as a pretext to federalize. I thought it was very funny. They were not very nice to Big Balls. Like,
did he actually say that out loud?
I mean, he didn't say that exactly, but he did talk about it to the media, and I'm pretty sure he said they weren't nice to him or something like that. But
they weren't nice to Big Balls. Yeah. Oh, we live in an absurd world, man. I don't even know. Oh my fucking God. But definitely psyop. I know that for a fact. It's a psyop.
Yeah. And again, I know this is so redundant at this point and has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it is such a fucking end zone dance that this child's name is Big Balls. I'm sorry.
I know.
They're just stunting on us, man. Like, you won. The score is like 73-0 right now. Like, you kicked our ass. You got to really name this kid Big Balls. I have to hear about that in the news. Are you trying to turn me into a terrorist? Like, what are you doing?
This is the FBI's new operation. This is how, we haven't had a lot of shooters
or
recently.
You into becoming like a radical so they can lock you up. I don't know what the fuck this is about. Okay.
But no, it's a real shame that the people that we dunk on online now are running the government. Real bleak.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to kind of try and close this out by talking about the minuscule ways and the unsuccessful ways that they're trying to like resist and regulate bot action on the internet. They started back. There's California has a bot transparency law that started in 2019, and ostensibly what it does is it makes it illegal to pretend to be a human if you are running any sort of like bot or astroturfing campaign. But this is only specifically supposed to talk about like in political. It doesn't mean, if it's trying to influence votes, essentially is kind of the limitation of this. And so it doesn't, that's important because there's so many, like, even if this was enforceable, which it's not, I mean, it's very toothless, but it's even more toothless because, the whole point of, like, if you look at Cambridge Analytica and that whole bot farm experience that we just talked about, they weren't explicitly trying to influence your vote. I mean, Steve Bannon, who is behind all that, his thing has been from the beginning that politics is downstream from culture. So they create an environment in which it's like the boiling frog parable. Like, they are boiling the frog through culture to create like the moment for this like far right populist whatever. So even that law right in of itself is very, very ineffectual. I'm going to read a quote.
Before you do that, I actually had something I wanted to go off from there. One of the more recent examples that I feel like this is an example of being, maybe there was some bot activity, I wouldn't be surprised, but just the downstream of culture thing is the whole American Eagle, Sydney Sweeney, Good Genes ad, the way that they sort of, the right, I mean, sort of hinged on this and are talking about it like Trump is talking about it. Everyone on Fox News is talking about it. Any sort of discourse online is being talked about this stupid fucking jeans ad. that's like just another way for them to boil the minds of our culture, and for whatever reason, like that could be to, make us not really recognize dog whistles or just not even question stuff like that.
Can you explain to me, and this is for the benefit of the listener who missed this too, but also for myself, I took kind of an internet sabbatical, and I have been doing everything I can to only be online when I'm doing it intentionally. You know what I mean? So I missed this. That's all to say. I missed the Sydney Sweeney thing. I know that there was an advertisement, and I know that the tagline was like, Sydney Sweeney has good genes. So like, just tell me the whole thing, like, and then I want to talk about that.
So it's basically the timeline of this was, there was that ad, and it's a jean company. She's wearing their jeans, and the ad, she says, it's my jeans. Like, I have good genes, or Sydney Sweeney has good genes. And, Nazis famously focus a lot on genes and genetics. And so basically there were some people that sort of made the connection, like, it's kind of weird that as society tends to gravitate and normalize reactionary ideology, Nazi ideology, far right ideology, that we are just sort of openly having dog whistles, like far right dog whistles, in mainstream advertising. That was like the whole thing. Yeah. But of course, right wingers do their whole song and dance where it's like, the woke left, the woke libs are triggered, they're crying, they're doing this, they're crazy, they're talking about all this, they want to kill you, and then they like sort of they do the end zone dance. They start dunking on everyone and making up new people.
Can I
to
ask
like
a
get mad at.
stupid question as somebody who didn't see the ad and has only gotten all my information secondhand? And if you're listening to this and you have a very strong opinion on this, please don't kill me. Enough people hate me. Is it possible that a very stupid marketing person or agency just didn't really meet the moment where it was like, oh, genes, like, could this be something as like simple as a dumb fuck moment that happened and like is being overblown because of the political moment? Do you think that, like, would this have happened 10 years ago if it was Scarlett Johansson who was the number one white woman that Republicans fought over or something? Would, like, you know what I mean? Like, is it possible that this is just a stupid thing?
I don't actually think it is just a stupid thing. I'm not, that's not to say, oh, American Eagle is all Nazis. I think this is a very, and I mean this, when I say smart, I mean this from the modern marketing perspective. It's smart in the sense that they knew
to get their name out there, because now we're all talking about
exactly.
Okay.
It's free organic impressions. That's what it's all about in the online marketing world, is the free, at least that is what is preferred, is the people naturally, the groundswell. And I think that maybe there's even if it's controversy, plausible
deniability for the company to be like, oh no, we're not Nazis, you know what I mean? Like, this is being blown out of proportion. Because,
like, let's be real. When's the last time you or fucking anyone has thought about fucking American Eagle? Like, when they knew what they were doing with this.
Selling phones, and I had to walk by it.
Exactly. No one has thought about this fucking brand in years. So like they knew what they were doing. I do believe they knew what they were doing with that ad. Yeah. They knew it would garner controversy.
Not necessarily because they're explicitly right wing, but because they knew it would generate a controversy. Got it.
Exactly.
And I would not be at all surprised if, like I'd done at my previous job, this would have been something that we would have been all over in terms of like astroturfing. Probably both sides of it, just to like get people talking, like that kind of stuff did happen. So obviously I'm full disclosure, completely talking out of my ass. I don't have any evidence to say other than the Cybersmith thing. It feels true. Like, very obviously this does kind of feel like a little bit of a bit of a psyop, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think what all of this is talking about, like what this episode and the episode we first talked about this, is that a lot of this is just sort of out there. All this bot activity is probably already happening. You're probably responding to or reading people that you think who are bots at this point. Like, who knows? Who's to say? Like, it's just out there. This activity is growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like unfortunate that we like live in a moment where like you can run that ad and like you are not going to get your ass beat for it. Metaphorically, of course. Like, This has nothing to do with anything again, but like I read an article today just to show kind of like how disgusted I was with the current moment, was like Polymarket is letting people bet on like how often women in the WNBA will be like get hit by dildos that people are throwing. And it's
no, Polymarket is fucking evil. We need to do an episode about Polymarket. Actually, I have been obsessed with how evil they are.
I am going to kind of self-suck here for a second and plug my actually, it wasn't my other show because we did it on Ed's show, but 60 Minute Drill did an episode on Ed's show. It was about how sports betting is evil and everything, that talks a bit about this. You listen to that, but I think Polymarket in particular is like the stage 4 version of that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's fucking crazy. Like I didn't even really, because like
it got on my radar in truly just how evil it was when the LA fire was happening earlier this year, I think in March or May. I can't remember exactly when this was, but there was betting on the website about how many, like how long the fires would go and like how far they would reach. And it's like, people are fucking betting on people dying. This is a true demonic evil. This is an evil far beyond anything we could have comprehended years ago.
Reading about that, so like it's a bit distant for me because I live in Washington State, and I think we might be the last or one of the only states left where you can't do that. You can't gamble online. It's
slowly DraftKings, I think, is sort of leading the charge on that. They're basically winning a lot of these legal battles against online gambling, like laws and regulations, from what I understand.
I just genuinely hope, in response to what's going on in Texas, blue states like Washington and Oregon gerrymander the fuck out of our own states, because fuck them and fuck that. Then we'll never have sports gambling in the state. Oh my God, what a fucking conundrum. Well, anyway, that's all to say, like that. I think this is just the moment that we live in, like culturally, intellectually, ethically. We just live in a much worse country than we did just a few years ago.
And it's very likely bots are battling all of our minds to like shift the culture and shift our perceptions of reality all the fucking time. And it's probably from our government too.
Yeah. And there's like nobody really able to, like, do you trust our octogenarian? Because like the only party that will try and fight it back against this are the Democrats. They are probably not willing to do it because they use some of these things for themselves, and they have been for just as long as Republicans have. That's where we talked about the David Brock thing at the top of this episode. But even if they wanted to, do you think that they know how? And then there's also kind of the big issue of like, how do you actually regulate? Because as we talked about in our second episode, like there is a slippery slope argument in like how we use any sort of like free speech stuff, like to legislate this would have potential First Amendment ramifications that could be overreach.
Doing some reading for this episode right now, you in an outline mentioned that China does have the age verification thing that's sort of starting to happen in the UK and Australia for websites like Discord or just pretty much any website. And that is, it's one of those things where it's like, it probably would fix some of this problem, but is that the trade-off we want to make? I don't know. I don't think so. A lot of this is really fucking tough. I think there was also, and I think you might have wanted to mention this too. I think it was in the EU. They have to. Did you say this already? Cut this if you did. But they're trying to make it so that the bot says that it's like a bot, that you're talking to a bot.
No, I didn't. We didn't talk about that. Yeah. Can you explain it?
Yeah. No. Yeah. So basically, I think it's going through probably sometime this year or next year. And the one thing I will say about EU regulations, like the reason we all have USB-C charging cables pretty much universal in the United States is because of EU regulations years back forcing companies that operate in the EU, like Apple, to switch to a universal. It's just, and that was like a huge win. I mean, fucking USB-C is a fucking godsend. Oh my God. So if I like who knows like exactly. I don't exactly know where they are on this battle for the EU to enforce these bot companies to basically, if you ask the bot, are you a bot? It'll be like, I don't know exactly how it would say it, but it would have to tell you that you are speaking to a bot, which does sound like a good solution. I just don't exactly know how that would be implemented directly, but to me that sounds like a good way, where it just sort of, you ask it and it takes down the facade of whatever it was saying before. It's just like oh no, this is a bot, this is not a real person, like this is not a human being. And maybe that could like make its way back to the United States like the USB-C charging cables. I don't know, that's sort of like a long shot and probably at least 8 years away, but that seems kind of promising. That one in particular seems like a very promising way forward.
Yeah. Well, you know, China does have a lot stricter laws on this stuff, but maybe part of the reason they're eating our fucking lunch is because they restrict video games for kids over there, right?
Yeah, no, I think we do have to follow their path on video games. I think they're right about that one. Yeah.
Yeah. We have to kill the iPad baby as a concept.
They export the iPad baby is ruining the world. Yeah, no, they came up with TikTok and then they're like, now we got to restrict this shit for an hour a day over here. Yeah.
Okay. Shit. That's probably a good place to cap this off. Do you have any closing thoughts on any of this, June, besides damn, this really fucking sucks, I wish we could do something about it?
Yeah, I don't know, I feel like ever since I learned recently there was that article that came out talking about all the different bot activity on different social media. I forget how all of them rated, but I believe Twitter X, the Everything app, had about like 60 or 76% of all activity that you see, replies, posts, anything, DMs, is bot activity, which I feel like really puts in perspective just the sort of state that we're living in on like online and in our politics, and how dangerous that is. I think like a lot of the stuff that we see, like the thing is so many people use the internet, like post COVID, everyone is like terminally online. You know, back in the day, pre-COVID, I feel like if you called yourself terminally online, or if someone called you that, you'd be like, that's like a knife to the heart. But it's, you can't really, like, everyone's sort of terminally online these days. Everyone is as online as each other. And that's just sort of, I guess, the danger of how easy it could be to sway our culture. And I don't know. I think we do have to regulate it somehow. I don't really know the solution to that, but I'm hoping the EU, like they did with the USB-C cable, swoops in to like force these evil tech companies in the United States to comply to their regulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, thank you for listening to Kill the Computer. We appreciate you sticking with us. We know we got off to a little bit of a slow and bumpy start, but we're here. Things are rolling. We've got stuff coming down the pipeline. I know I failed you on getting the July release for Chiral Mindset, but I did talk to Marcos. Not only did we talk about how to get those episodes out, but we're planning an August episode too. So we're probably going to have maybe 3 this month, which will be cool. I don't want to promise that because we've given you 0 since December, but you know, that's what we're talking about doing anyway. And then MOYP is working on 2 this month. I think 1 should be coming pretty soon. Cameron had told me that he was I think he was doing 1 this week. So we should have some extra stuff for you guys soon. So if you have listened on the Patreon, if you stuck around on the Patreon, thank you so much, genuinely. If you canceled the Patreon to see what the new show was going to look like, or see what kind of the pacing or what the extras were going to be and stuff, stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot. August is like going to be the first full month up and going. Obviously at the end we had a lot of transition going on there with ending Western Kabuki and all that stuff, but we're here, we're back on track, everything's full speed ahead. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, deeply appreciate it.
Okay, all right, well, we'll see you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Kill the computer.